time to move on to Homegames Stuff?
It's time to move on to Homegames Stuff.
Cool. It's weird we got rid of the music for this. I feel like they are still distinct units, but kind of whatever.
It's not just like one section, but like they flow better, maybe.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you saw, but I started chunking up our podcast.
I saw that you did, but I was like, I will listen to like 50% of the original. I don't need to listen to me again over and over.
Yeah, no. I think it's kind of one of these things. Well, okay, what do you think of it before I tell you what I think of it?
I think that if our goal is to build easily digestible chunklets of our podcast, that's probably a good one. Mm-hmm. If the goal is to force people to dig through the podcast looking for the interesting parts, then it's probably not a good idea. But I think we're more in line with like they should just pick out what they're interested in.
Yeah, because like you said that your sister, for example, likes listening to us talk about the regular stuff, but doesn't care so much about the technical stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that probably exists for other people, maybe, or maybe the inverse, where they don't care about.
I wonder how many people just listen to the song of the week and then move on.
0. That's okay. That number is at 0 right now.
All right.
So no one gives a shit about that, but we'll still do it because I like doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole thing is like just for people to be able to find what they want instead of having to skim through 40 minutes of us talking about Roblox or whatever before they get to what they care about. So yeah, that was kind of.
Spoken about Roblox?
You spoke about Roblox because you were talking about the guy on Reddit who was like posting about why he has no friends on Roblox or something.
I don't even remember.
I do. Anyway, that's the whole thing. So yeah, that was just kind of the I guess like a housekeeping thing, just kind of trying to split up content so people can more easily get what they want, or they can listen to the full thing, like I said. So.
Yeah, real quick, I know we joked about it, but I very much still just turn my brain off and go for however long we're going to talk on here.
Like, yeah, you just black out and there's a podcast at the end.
Yeah, very much. But yeah, man, how did Homegames go for you this week?
Homegames was so I basically had planned yesterday to do a couple things. I wanted to update my objectification stuff so I can make my video of building slaps. And I watched your video and I heard you mention that hot reloading would be nice. And so I had planned to do all this stuff yesterday, but like I said, AC broke. So when it's 80 degrees in the house, I do not want to sit in a hot room with a hot computer running, writing code. So I just did a little bit of stuff. I already had the objectification stuff for the Squish library done and tested and kind of that stuff. So the next step was for me to update the Homegames root node stuff, the thing that kind of renders the bezel and the buttons and the modal and kind of stuff like that, the settings modal. So I had to update all of that to objectify all the parameters. I also updated so you don't need a color anymore. It's not required. Mm-hmm. So you can just have a fill or whatever. And that whole thing. So basically I got Homegames to run a game with the Homegames root, but I didn't update any of the other games. So they all still break if you try to run them individually. Mm. And I started on a test that allowed me to just render a solid color background to make sure it still worked. Mm. And it did. So that was kind of my objectification. But for people who are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, I don't know terminology. That's why I'm calling it objectification. There's like words to describe what I'm talking about. But basically, when you create a game node of a shape or text or asset type, you need to know what arguments go in what position. So you have to say, I know that the size is the first parameter. I know that the position is the second. These are examples. I know that the text is the third. I know that an on-click function is the fourth, etc., whatever. So, for example, if you only want to put in position, color, and on-click, and that's the first, second, and fifth parameters, you have to put in your first, second, and then a null, and then a fifth, which is ugly code. It's not super clear what you're actually passing. It's not really obvious, and you kind of have to remember this order. When I say objectifying parameters, I mean I'm turning these parameters into a JavaScript object, which have keys and values. So I can say the key is on input, the key is player ID, the key is whatever. So I can selectively say exactly what I want. And these parameters can be parsed by the game node classes to do what you want without needing so many nulls or kind of you have more clarity on that kind of stuff. So that will require a refactor of basically everything currently creating game nodes. But that's kind of call that custodial work that I'll do at some point. Which I said I already did for Homegames root. So generally speaking, that's what I'm talking about with objectification. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I know to you it makes sense, but yeah.
Hopefully to everyone else it also makes sense. I left some comments on that one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw.
I didn't because I don't get notified of anything that you do.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I have no idea what's going on.
I assigned you back to the PR, so hopefully we'll get them going forward. But basically, I requested some changes on there. What I was saying was I think we should destructure the argument as it comes into the function. So you build your object, you call the function with that object. I think on the callee side, the one that's been called, we should destructure it. And my argument there was like we could destructure it and allow people to pass in additional props that we weren't expecting and still put them into the game node. So they don't need to have the game node and then put a prop in afterwards. They can just pass in like, a thick object, like with extra parameters. And what it would allow us to do going down later is if we wanted to write our own, I forget the name of the package, but I think it's called like prop types or something. Basically, it verifies that the props, like the arguments sent into the argument, are of the correct type, and we could protect that way against somebody send us the wrong like information. And then with a destructured version, you can just loop over the named ones and verify that their prop types are correct against a like pre-built list of like this argument should have this prop type, basically. If it doesn't.
That, I think, sounds good on the destructuring thing. So are you proposing that someone can just pass in kind of arbitrary key values and we'll set all of them on the dot node or on the class itself?
No, we just add them to the node, like this dot node.
So wouldn't that allow for us to say, for example, we have kind of a HG whatever property, someone can pass in that same key without knowing that they're overriding something?
Yeah, but we could always throw away those keys if we wanted to. But if somebody knew what they were doing and they really did need to override that key, I think we should let them. Because I doubt that they would come up with that on their own. Or we could even do a console warn if they were using it and just say like, hey, you're using a key that's maybe question, like maybe don't use that key if you don't have to.
So, okay, I see what you're saying. I think from my perspective, the dot node is this is Homegames stuff. Like these are the properties that the kind of engine, the kind of guts know about, and it will always look at the dot node dot on click. These are things that we can kind of enforce rules against. You can set whatever property on your object as long as you're not setting dot node. We have this problem throughout because it's JavaScript. You can do whatever you want. But to me, setting a property on the object is something that belongs in the game instead of just like a convenience that we expose that says, give us all these properties and we'll set all of them on the dot node, which is the kind of Homegames node, the actual object the Homegames thing is looking at. And you can set your properties outside of this node. I think having that separation makes more sense than just allowing you to put everything on the dot node. Because like I said, the dot node to me is the separation to make it more clear. This is Homegames and this is the shit I put on.
Yeah.
Instead of combining them.
I'm willing to accept that argument. Really, part of the reason I wanted to destructure it originally was because you are looking in memory twice for the same value, and I was like, let's not do that. And I figured that with the destructuring, we could allow for that, but I do agree that we don't necessarily do that, and we can instead just use it to eventually get prop type checking.
When you say looking in memory twice for the same thing, what do you mean?
You say like the arg dot 2D coordinates once in a check and then once when you're adding it to the node itself. So you're going into memory twice to get that same value. Whereas if you destructured it, you'd have it in, you wouldn't be looking it up twice. We would
still have we would essentially be doing a check on what we need to have, which is what we're currently doing. We would have that first check. You need to have dot coordinates. You need to have whatever. And then you would iterate through all the keys and do the same thing and read through memory again anyway. You would need the check and assignment. I'm going to look at args to see if this exists, and then I'm going to look at args to get the values.
Oh yeah, but with the destructuring, you would just get the value or undefined. So if it's undefined, then you leave your check where it is, right? But instead of saying arg dot whatever, you just say like 2D coordinate, if 2D coordinate. So you don't have to say like if arg dot 2 arg dot 2D coordinate.
So destructuring is okay. There's a function that has parameter x and y. I pass it an object with key x and key y. And they're just magically passed to the function.
Yeah, it takes the form of like parenthesis, open curly brace, and the argument name, comma, argument name, comma, argument name, close parenthesis, close curly brace, close parenthesis. Basically, you whatever the arguments that are passed in, you can name them as long as they match up with what the object is passing in. If the object doesn't have those keys, they become undefined, or you can just set a default in the same way that you can default like in JavaScript regularly. Sorry,
Java.
Jeez, yeah, I messed that one up.
We should redo all this in Java.
No, I don't remember enough about Java to do that.
I just real quick side note. I had to parse JSON, HTTP like JSON response this past week in Java. And I was like, surely there must be a JSON.parse equivalent. Nope. Fuck you. You got to have a class mapping like basically the entire JSON structured like object. So I have 4 class. Anyway, it's a whole thing. This is why I love Python and JavaScript, because you have the freedom to just be like, fuck it, give me an object.
Yeah.
Java does not.
Yeah, like a loosely defined set, that's better. I love heterogeneous and like dynamically typed languages.
So you're using words that I just don't comprehend. I mean, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it's like, what the fuck? You sound like a programmer.
Sorry.
No. It's not a problem.
Yeah, that was like my big thing on that one is I think we should destructure it so we don't need to go into like search through memory to find it. And also like if we eventually wanted to do prop type checking, we wouldn't call prop type checking, or like arg type checking. We could implement that easier with everything destructured.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the node separation thing would make it harder to do because if we want to keep the idea of .node as the actual listenable object by the actual game engine that kind of has the guts of what it's doing, and that separate from the properties that you assign kind of willy-nilly to the actual kind of wrapper around this node, if we wanted to maintain that separation, which I would argue I think we do, I think we should, then it would be this weird, nasty logic of, okay, everything that you've passed me in the parameters, I'm going to set on .node that I've like named as things. And then everything else just goes on this, which is kind of this weird, I know that everything you passed me needs to go in 2 different things, and I'm defining the separation here.
We cannot do that part. I'm okay with not doing that. I do still think that the destructuring should happen, and if they do pass in additional stuff, we can just toss it away. We can just not contend with it.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. I'll fight you. Just joking. Okay, cool. So I'll respond to your comments. I haven't seen what you.
Most of my comment was talking about destructuring it and then adding the remaining arguments to the node. But you can just ignore that piece and just take a look at what I was talking about with the destructuring part of it. Because I do think that there is a benefit there.
Yeah.
Even without doing the like additional argument stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds good. Did you also look at the web PR that I had for fixing the aspect ratio stuff?
I did. I love that one. That one got a big old thumbs up.
Awesome.
And then your bezel one, is the bezel supposed to only cover like the top 50%?
No.
Okay.
Is it fucked for you?
Yeah.
Oh, weird. Did you?
So the top 50 has the nice like bezel, and the bottom 50 is like either no bezel or like a gray bar that just kind of goes around it.
I forgot to update like the sample config because it reads the bezel values from your config. It might just not. It might be pulling undefined and getting weird fucking behavior as a result.
But that was on the home page, like the Homegames home dashboard.
Yeah, but it's all using the same bezel logic.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So that dashboard is still calling the stuff to render that bezel. And that bezel is expecting a bezel X and bezel Y size things in the config. And if those aren't there, the math is just getting fucked along the way because it's dividing by 0 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was part of the other thing. The other thing was I took a look at how you were doing your math, and I simplified it, but also question marked it, because I was like, I don't know why this works.
It's like I said last week, it works, and I don't know why. Like, I'm sure I could whiteboard some shit and be like, yeah, clearly this is how this math works based off of this. I could write a proof.
Here's the thing, though, is I broke it down to figure out what your actual calculation was, and I was still like, I don't know why this is working. Basically, you're like taking the scale like the scale.x, for example, then you multiply it by the x value minus 50, and then all of that, you add 50 to it.
Minus 50. What the fuck is that about?
Yeah,
I should add comments here.
I think I also said, I was like, some of these things, like, I don't know why this is working. Maybe add some comments to it.
Yeah.
There's another, I don't remember if it was which PR it was for, but I was like, hey, I remember you explained why this was really important. Like, where you squish then unsquish the thing. I was like, I remember you explained to me on the podcast why it was important. I have no recollection, though, at all. Like, can you add a comment, like, why we...
It's because it's essentially a copy of the properties that we need into its own object. So that way we can modify with the scaled stuff. I'll add a comment, but that's what this is for. So I'm not modifying the object directly, because otherwise I'm actually changing your game node data.
Okay, I see.
Because object.assign was not doing that, even though I thought that's what it did. But
Object.assign is not deep, which is probably what you were running into.
Yeah.
Because JavaScript is partially passed by pointer and partially passed by value.
Yeah, that's programmer shit. I don't know anything.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it looked pretty good. I'll take a look at the sample config stuff and maybe change my comment on there, because I was like, hey man, why is this only the top half? I don't actually know.
Yeah, I should add a check, or at least a default. I should add a default in that config, so it's just defaults to 15. Yeah. Anyway, that was a stupid thing.
Yeah, and the math, I still don't understand why it was working, but it looked like it worked, at least on the...
It does, until you put the bezel size to above like 30, and then it's fucked again.
Oh.
I am not a mathematician. If only one of us had a degree in math, that'd be really helpful.
Listen, I'll sit down and actually break down like what the bezel stuff should calculate down to. I just looked at yours and I simplified it, because you were doing yours in like 2 or 3 steps, and I was like,
Yeah,
it's gonna be one assignment, I think.
I had what felt like a Rain Man moment, where I was just like, I just like saw the matrix in front of me, and I just like fucking did everything, and it worked. And I even showed Zenobia, and I was very excited, and she was like, oh, cool. I was like, you don't understand.
You don't, yeah. Honestly, I was impressed. I was like, how did he come up with this math? Because it's not easy.
But that's why it's like line by line. I was just typing like random shit.
Oh, I see. And then you just copy that line over and over again. I was like, yeah.
I didn't copy anything over and over.
It looks like you do like a scale of the x, and the scale of the y is exactly the same, but you change the x and the y, and then you do it again later on.
You're right. I did do that. Yeah. I should have like a common scale function somewhere.
Yeah, I was going to point that out too, but at the time I was just like, let's first figure out what this math is actually for. I was like, what is this math calculating out?
That's actually something I wanted to mention. You just mentioned the squish and unsquish thing, which is actually, it adds about a millisecond or 2 for every thing there that it does, the render. And that's not ideal. So I actually realized I don't want to do that at all. I want to be able to pass a scale factor to squish itself. So when I say, hey, squish this game node, but everything that can kind of be rendered, scale it to this value. And then instead of needing to squish, unsquish, and then do the math on the unsquished stuff is just mathed already. Yeah.
I like that idea.
It's more performant, and it also allows the squish function to handle that scaling instead of the squisher in Homegames doing that, because it is a squish thing. So
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Cool.
Like I said, step 1, I think for me was like, I don't know what this is doing, or I don't know why this is working. Honestly, I was like, I don't know what the factors are that lead into this actually performing properly, but okay.
I was trying to do this math thing where I was even doing the numerator of the left hand side times the denominator of the right hand side is equal to the denominator of the left times the numerator of the right. So then this is my x, and then kind of I was doing the math. I was doing the work.
Yeah, that's right. That's a proof. That's a mathematical proof. It's okay.
But my math constantly was wrong, and I had no idea what it was. It was just missing something. So then when I was like, oh, this actually needs to be 100 minus this, because I just had like a fucking thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was deep in it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'll go back.
That was the other thing. You had it like multiplied by 100, and then immediately after divided by 2, and I was like, so you added like, so that's 50.
Yes, okay, but there is some clarity in the numbers there. I mean, like hold on one second, I have to sneeze. This is dumb, and it went away. It's like when you're doing days or times, whatever is constants. You're just like time, const day hours is equal to 24 times 60 times whatever, because it's the number of milliseconds, because you're making it clear it's this times instead of the hard coded 86,400 or whatever it is.
I see.
So I was trying to do that instead of just doing the like result of the math. But yeah, you're right. I just need a comment.
Yeah. But like I said, it looked good on the top half. So good job. I really did like the Homegames web version. I was like, give that one a big old thumbs up. Put that one right.
That was like one line gone.
Like it works though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice.
That one I like the most because it was like that fixed my problem of like I can't see anything when I'm doing. You can see it when I did my recording of like, well, one side is like super half because like my code is on the other window. Yeah,
I was basically doing this stuff. Like, well, that one I was like, oh, it's already fixed. You just need to review my pull request. And then the other one was the hot reloading. So I was like, I'm trying to help you here. You know, I'm trying to solve your problems.
Actually, I didn't see a PR for the hot reloading.
I didn't put a PR. I sent you a text. I just put a branch.
See, okay, I misread it. I thought you said I put out a PR, and I was like, there's no PR. But I also didn't reread the text. I was like, whatever. I got to do something for Homegames podcast day tomorrow.
Yeah, well, that was me yesterday. I was like, fuck, it's 80 degrees. I have nothing to talk about tomorrow. I got to just do this shit. So the reason it's not a pull request for my hot reloading stuff. So hot reloading, for what we're talking about, is basically we want to be able to change the code of anything kind of in the game server, or it's the kind of code that it's calling. So any of the games, any of that kind of stuff. And without having to restart the server just kind of knows that something changed and then reboots itself. Essentially, that's what we're talking about. So I was looking into ways to monitor file changes like on a system level. And apparently on Linux, you get some sort of process, you get some sort of thing you can listen to say that, yeah, this file has changed, but that wouldn't work on Windows or anything. So because it's Linux, Unix, whatever system shit that I don't understand. So basically realized I just need this to work, and I don't need it to be good. I don't need it to be correct. I don't want to install some other library. I don't want to do anything like that. So this is the wrong way to do it, but this is how it works. It is a node script that will, at the beginning, start up the game server process, right? The same way that you would. At that point, every second, it monitors, it'll go and read your entire directory and put every file as a buffer into a map of path to file buffer. And it's very fast. Even on my shitty computer, it's very fast. And so it'll basically build up this cache of this file name has this file content, and every second it'll run. And if it sees anything is different from the last time it ran, it'll kill the process it started and start up a new one. And it works. The only problem is I'm doing this with I forget the actual function I'm calling, but essentially it's starting up a child service, and I don't have the ability to kind of get standard out and standard error from it once it happens. I only gonna get the initial standard out and standard error when you run the process, but you don't get the standard out from the process. So I need to update so it can, I think it's like spawn child or fork or one of these things where I can listen to the events from the children, so I can put your logs to standard out. Because currently if you try to log something, or if an error happens, it just gets eaten. Then the hot loader will just restart because it's seeing a different, but it's just so that's why it's not a pull request, it's just a branch. But I figured just for kind of our purposes, because again, I wanted to record my video and stuff, so I wanted to be able to have just Sublime and just a browser, and I also wanted to have a quarter up for my face, just because I just want to add my personality to it, like, hey guys, or whatever in the thing. So it'll be that without having to bring up a terminal to start up the thing. So it's purely selfish, but also for you.
No, honestly, I think I spent maybe like 5 minutes just killing and starting up the process again. But I mean, I do like hot reload. I use it at work, and I enjoy it. Once we have that one ironed out, I think it'll be a big productivity bonus.
Yeah, cool.
What did you think about the video, by the way?
It was cool. I think it would benefit from being cut up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think I watched an hour and 20 minutes of it. I was like, okay, I see where this is going. You know,
you missed the best part then.
What's the best part?
The best part is the last 25 minutes where I legitimately just go crazy, and you can hear in my voice that I'm a little bit frustrated, but I'm trying not to show it.
Well, so yeah, I guess I was just watching it, and I think kind of a more split up, like this is this part, this is done now, this is this part to kind of complete into the thing. I think that would be like my goal. Yours was cool. I liked watching the kind of thought process that you had of kind of starting from the beginning. I think it was quiet for stretches at times, and it's like, I know it's very hard to keep talking when you're thinking, especially when it's like, there's pressure to talk because you and there's this like weird thing. It's like we said, we were streaming. Kind of.
Yeah.
And it's that thing of like, fuck, I'm just walking forward in this game. Oh, you guys see the nets or whatever? Like just fucking talking about random shit.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying talk about random shit. But there were times where it was just like, I know that you're deep in the weeds in your thoughts, but like.
Yeah, I definitely don't verbalize my thoughts a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I guess from my perspective, I don't know. Because I know exactly what you're talking about because I know how Homegames works. I don't know how much context the general audience would need or if they even kind of can follow along. I think it makes sense what you were talking about. Like this, you know, the game node needs this. The Homegames engine will do this, or whatever. I thought it made sense. But yeah, no, I liked it overall. I think, just the main thing is like in the moments of silence. I think one of the things I was thinking of is I want it to be something that you can follow without watching. I don't need to look at the code to know where you're at in your process. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the only thing. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
I think definitely cutting it up would have probably been helpful because I would have been a lot less frustrated. There were definitely some parts where I was just like, why isn't this working? Like in my head, I was like, this is working, and then when I try to work it, it's like it threw an error. I'm just like, I don't know why.
You did that at that one point where you cut it, and then it was because you were passing in the parameters that you copied and pasted.
I actually cut it, and then I went to my mom's house, came back, and was like, all right, let's get back into this. And then I saw the error, and I was like, why am I so stupid? And I was like, why am I so stupid? And I realized like you were just real butthurt that was failing.
Yeah, I think maybe
I needed to cut it up in like 30-minute chunks probably. Because I think every 30 minutes I accomplished something. What I really wanted to do is I wanted it to be like, and now we tagged a square. So like you could see, like we started with square and we ended with tag. And I was like, that's the goal. We didn't get there though.
Yeah, that was another thing. I'm not sure. So like,
we did get there. I did get there. At the very last minute, I do tag a square, and I was like, and it changed color, and it's good to go.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? My whole thing of like no edits. I mean, I don't know if that's actually a good idea. My original idea was sit down for 2 hours, accomplish something, stop the video, start up the video, and do another stretch. So there's no edits. It's just stops of this is a chunk. This was a chunk. This was a chunk. I don't know how realistic that is, especially because when we're building something that's not dead ass simple, like what you were doing is not dead ass simple, you're going to run into things where you're like, oh, fuck, this doesn't work. Oh, shit. And like that kind of stuff. And that thing, you have to be like on the fly, be entertaining and, you know, kind of thoughtful and also fix your problem,
fix this thing,
which is very hard to do. And I don't know how realistic it is to expect that or to even do that. So maybe I'll kind of have more thoughts on that after I finish mine, because I want to do mine at some point, hopefully this week if my AC is repaired. I don't fucking know. Whatever, I'll do it, and if it's hot and I'm dying, I'll just go through it. Bro, you know.
Let me tell you, an hour into it, you're gonna be like, "Kill everybody! I don't want to do this. I'm real butthurt because my stuff's not working. I don't know why." And I get like that when I'm under it. I don't know what it is about me when there's pressure, but I get salty quick.
It felt like I was interviewing you for a job and you didn't know it. It felt like you were like trying to explain your thought process, which is what you do in like a job interview. And then when you hit the part of the problem that the interviewer wanted you to get to that was hard, it's like the challenge is talking through that. You got to like really think out loud, which is not something either of us do.
No.
So it's kind of I kind of do it sometimes. I call it rambling, but it's really thinking out loud. But yeah, anyway, I'll have more, I guess, valuable input after I do mine, because I want to know. I need to be in the same spot that you are in to like really know. You know what I mean? But I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool.
Nice. I think, I think one of the big things I should have done beforehand was taken a look at the collision function first and known how that worked, instead of looking at it on the thing and being like, how does this work? Okay, let's use it, not really knowing how it works, and then going back to the move test and be like, but they don't touch, and then being like, but I need them to touch.
Yeah. And I think that's actually where most of the silence came from, was there was a part where you were just like, like really 45 seconds. It's like, I see what you're doing, but like, talk through it. That's kind of like my thing. So maybe like, the preparation for knowing like what functions you're going to call.
Prep better.
But that was just one example. I mean, you know how the guts of the stuff work, and that was just kind of you using a new utility kind of on the fly. It's like, okay, well, you kind of have to figure it out, and maybe it's interesting for someone to watch you figure that out or whatever, the whole thing. And it's good for me to see like you're a person kind of in real time trying to read my bullshit code. That's valuable for me. So anyway, I'm glad that we kind of, thank you for doing that. I'm just amazed constantly that you still do this with me, because this shit is like work, but it's for free. So thank you for doing that.
I enjoy it.
As long as you enjoy it, I enjoy it too. I have no other home game stuff.
I guess just real touch. There's not a lot to it. Basically, like 2-3 weeks ago now, we talked about the secrets file, and basically what we wanted to do was give people an error or like a visible warning that they're missing their secrets file, or at least the secrets that this thing is using. And I was like, oh yeah, easy peasy do. And I added that piece, and I was like, now I need to alert them. And I was like, wait a second, but that needs a modal. And I was like, wait a second.
That's a common thing.
I was like, I needed to just do the modal thing first. So now this week, I'm going to make the common modal thing. And then that PR will come out. Then the secrets PR will come out using it. And then I'll put out another video, shorter video, for color tag.
Cool. Yeah. That sounds good. For the modal thing, I don't know how you want to do it, but essentially what you need to do, I think I mentioned this last week, but what you need to do is, if you look at the Homegames root, the constructor, it adds things to the game, or to the, I don't know, you'd call it game tree.
The base root.
The base, in a very specific order. It adds the bezel, it adds the game, and then it adds something. But basically that order is a tree. So if you want to do a modal that will always eat over everything visible, you have to put it as the rightmost child of the tree. So just remember that that's how that works. You can build however interface you want for that, and I'll critique it as I see fit. But
yeah. Okay. That'll be my goal for this week. That won't be recorded because I'm sure I'll run into something. Yeah.
How does this work?
Yeah, you should really watch the last 20 minutes of the video. I listened to it again, and I was like, yeah, boy, you should have just called it a day earlier and been like, we'll adjust and figure this out later.
Yeah. All right, I'll go back and I'll finish it. She makes an appearance in every one of them, you know? I don't know. Last time she wasn't, the dog, Sapphire the dog, was not super audible in any of the stuff, thanks to my incredible audio editing. So
that's true. I'm glad, because she was slurping up water and just crunching out on kibble too.
Yeah, she was going hard.